Now, to do just that is political science professor Dr. Bilal Sekou from the University of Hartford. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on.
Good morning. So as people head to the polls this morning, we have these surveys that show the economy, inflation. Those are the two issues top of mind for those voters. How are those issues? How can we expect those issues to influence which way voters are deciding to cast those ballots?
Yeah, I think those are really the big issues. You know, the Democrats certainly had hoped that they'd be able to lead with abortion rights and some other kinds of issues, but the economy has loomed large. You know, people are going to the grocery stores, they're paying more for eggs, they're paying more for milk, they're paying more for gas. And so in the minds of a lot of voters, that's the critical issue that will decide, you know, how they feel about this election season.
And we'll keep a close eye as those results come in. Let's talk about these important races in Connecticut. For the governor's race, as we mentioned, we have this rematch between Ned Lamont and Republican Bob Stefanowski. Polls have shown Governor Lamont with this steady, comfortable lead. What does that tell us heading into Election Day about what to expect in that result?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, keep in mind that Connecticut hasn't unseated a governor since 1954. So it's really hard to defeat an incumbent governor unless that, you know, again, that when that seat opens, if a governor decides to step down, then it's a wide open race. And so, you know, Lamont has, you know, an advantage here going into this race. This is the second time around he's faced Stefanowski, and clearly he hasn't been able to, you know, put together the kind of campaign that would give him an opportunity to really unseat Lamont. And so I think the outcome of that election is what the polls suggest, that Lamont will come out with the victory.
And we talk about these polls. Another race we're watching very closely is for this 5th congressional district. Incumbent Representative Jahana Hayes hoping to keep her seat against Republican challenger George Logan. That race is a toss-up heading into Election Day. The polls super tight in that race. What are you expecting in that race?
Yeah, we're not the only ones watching that race. I think everyone around the country is also watching that race. It's a race in which a lot of money has come into the state from outside of Connecticut. It's a race that Republicans would like to win. It's a seat that they feel like they can flip. Logan has run a good campaign against Hayes, and so this thing has really tightened up. And it's a toss-up in terms of who will actually win, you know, this particular race. And so the Republicans are trying to regain control of the House of Representatives, and this will be a key piece for them in terms of winning control of the House.
Yeah, and speaking off of that, Republicans need that net pickup, just 5 seats to take back the House. Could the results in this race give us a better idea of what happens across the country in those other important races?
I think so, in the sense that the economy is playing large in this race as well. Voters in that district are also talking about inflation, talking about, you know, some of the economic challenges they're facing in their families. And so from that standpoint, this race could be a bellwether for how some other tight races are going across the country. And this would be a great pickup for Republicans if they're able to pull this off. There aren't many Republicans in the Northeast, and so this would be a coup. And it's a person of color who could possibly win the seat.
And historically, what has the results in this district looked like in the past? Is this typically a back and forth seat?
Well, you know, certainly of the five seats here in the state, this is probably the one that was drawn up in a way in which you can see competitive races. Hayes had a comfortable lead her last race out, but compared to other legislators, you know, in the congressional delegation, she is new and she has less time in office. And so some of the advantages of incumbency haven't really kicked in the way they've kicked in with Larson and Himes, and also the national exposure that Blumenthal has and some of the others in the delegation. And so, you know, this is what happens to a young congressperson. And so she's able to win this thing. I think, you know, next time around, she's a lot stronger. There'll be more name recognition and all the things that could really help her, you know, hold on to that seat. But that's a if she's able to win.
And really quickly, we have time for one more question. What are some of those other races across the country that people should be watching tonight?
Well, I think from the standpoint of the Democrats, the Senate races are really the big ones. I think there is acceptance that Democrats will lose control of the House. Redistricting has created some seats for Republicans and given them an advantage in that. But I think, certainly the Democrats want to hold on to Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and New Hampshire. And, if they lose one of those seats, then they've got to flip Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Florida. And so, I think there are only a few states that are really competitive and a few seats that Democrats, for example, will be paying close attention to, and Republicans kind of vice versa in terms of what their goal is for tonight.
Great insight. Dr. Bilal Sekou, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really, really appreciate all your analysis. And we'll be checking in with the professor once again coming up in the next hour. We'll talk about the U.S. Senate race during that hit. Guys, I will send it back to you.